Welcome, believers. Welcome, conspiracy theorists. Welcome to the wonderfully weird world of the Tinfoil Hat Fan Club. Thanks for sticking around. I really appreciate it. Thanks for looking and watching. It's really cool. Last week we spoke about Antarctica and the Piri Reis map. Fascinating stuff, that, the Piri Reis map. Check it out. I really recommend you do, right? That was last week, about a map dating 1513 that shows the Antarctic without any ice. And, satellite mapping. It's only identical. 1513. That's mad, that is. So check it out. It's really cool. Right, we are going to continue on the Antarctic theme. And if we have, and we're going to do that, we're going to cover Admiral Byrd. We've got to talk about Nazi bases, aliens, and that sort of stuff, right? So let's talk about Nazi bases. We'll start there, right? Nazis in particular, those of high rank within the Third Reich, were obsessed with the occult, weren't they? Raiders of the Lost Ark isn't that far from the truth, you know. Hitler was obsessed with the search for lost advanced weapons, like the Ark of the Covenant, right? That's the search for such secretive wisdom, at least according to some researchers, would take the Nazis to Antarctica in the run-up to the Second World War. So let's examine then the alleged Nazi bases in Antarctica and examine the numerous claims of just what these bases might have been used for. But before we go any further, I would like to say a thank you to UFO Insight. This is where I'll get all my information, right? Go and check them out. It is really, really cool. For a tiny, tiny little bit of money, it's really, really tiny, right? You can have a year's subscription. Go and check them out. It's really, really cool, right? Others, though, would believe that the Nazi base was used to develop UFO technology. And that's what I'm into, right? With some even going so far as to say the base was occupied by not only high-ranking Nazi officers, but an unknown alien race, right? So you may think that's mad, but bear me out, right? One claim in the book Nazi Moon Base by a fellow called Graham Davis, and I'll try and put him there, right, claims that the base was home to the alleged flying disc, which was discreetly shipped out of German-held territory as the Russian army approached in May 1945. Look, they were developing some sort of flying saucer, they were, right? Davis further claims that a bloke called Hans Gammler, along with other high-ranking scientists and engineers, then worked to develop the disc as well as the base itself, well into 1946, with a view of continuing the war. Right, and you can't blame them, can you, really? Right, so they've got this flying saucer thing that they're trying to get working. Luckily for us, it was too late, right? Now, while it is easy to dismiss such claims as nonsense, we should perhaps resist doing so until we have refreshed our minds of the Project High Jump operation in early 1947, right, involving one of the most respected military people of his day, Admiral Richard Byrd, right? So, a reminder of Operation High Jump. Officially named Operation High Jump, it began in late 1946 with an effort led by the American military to establish a research base on Antarctica, right? However, according to some researchers, this was merely a cover story for the world press and, in turn, the wider population, right? So, Operation High Jump in 1946, right? The Americans said, look, we are off to establish a research base in Antarctica, right? But it is thought by some that the reason for the American interest was their sudden knowledge of the existence of the Nazi base. Now, this is said to have arrived with them, again, according to some line of inquiry in the conspiracy world, courtesy of von Braun. Von Braun was a German who surrendered to American forces and became one of the many Nazi scientists and engineers who were transplanted into the United States through Operation Paperclip. Right now, Operation Paperclip was an operation, it's in the name, right, to nick a load of Nazi scientists and put them in America, right? So that is where we got our rockets from. NASA, it's got to be thankful for Nazi scientists because they were well ahead of their time, right? So that was Operation Paperclip. And apparently this von Braun, when he came over to America, said to whoever, he said, look, I'm not being funny, but there's Nazi bases in Antarctica. You better go and check it out, right? So that is where this comes from. Now, upon hearing of the base and Kamler's plan, you know, the bloke who's building the UFOs, a task force was deployed and the cover story with it, right? Now, once more, it is easy to push such claims aside. However, as we shall see, and we will see, the actions and words of Byrd would suggest that, at the very least, there are some partial truths to the claims. Well, I'm going to go a bit further and go, there are full truths to the claims, all right? I've got to tell you the story. So, by December 1946, the units were approaching the Antarctic coast. Then in February 1947, pilot Richard Byrd took to the skies to cross and observe the icy sheets below him. Except, according to Byrd's own words at his initial press conference, the ground below him suddenly changed to show a green vegetation and fields, as well as animals that shouldn't have been there. Now, that's his words, right, including a mammoth-like animal, right? So just think, right, so he's flying over the icy sheets of Antarctica and he comes across fields and vegetation. What's more, right, what's even weirder, as if negotiated this terrain, he would claim in his flight notes that he was flying over something that seems to be a city, right? So green vegetation, weird animals, and a city. Now, it was around this time in the flight that a voice come through on the plane's radio, apparently with a Nordic or German accent, and it would welcome Byrd to our domain. That's the voice, not me, right? Even stranger, he would claim to have flown into an opening in the Earth itself. A short time after doing so, an unknown force took control of his craft, and I would imagine that's a bit like a tractor beam in Star Trek, right? The next thing he realised, there were several strange flying vehicles beside his plane, saucer-shaped and clearly marked with a Nazi swastika. So there goes your theory, right? So the Nazi bases and an unknown alien race working together. If this is true, what he's saying, then that's clearly not just a legend, is it, right? Byrd's plane was eventually brought to the ground in a controlled landing manner, and he would end his flight notes stating, right, this is his flight notes. Several men are approaching on foot towards our aircraft. They are tall with blonde hair. That sounds Nordic, doesn't it? In the distance is a shimmering city pulsating with rainbow hues of colour. I do not know what is going to happen now, but I see no sign of weapon on their approaching. I hear a voice ordering me by name to open the cargo door, so I comply. And that's the end of his log. The event that Byrd would go to describe later, he would draw from memory. All right. Now, he said he would notice how he found himself inside what appeared to be a mammoth cavern. As he scanned his surroundings, he was aware of lakes, fields, and stretches of vegetation. He would say, even stranger, he would also claim to have felt something similar to a sun. He would also recall how the city appeared to be made of a crystal material. He and his wingman were accompanied to a large building where they were left in a room for several moments, each with a warm beverage which tasted like nothing I have ever savoured before. A short time later, one of the tall men returned and asked Byrd to go with them. He did, right? So, according to the account, Byrd was met by several representatives from a race that called the inside of the earth their home. Upon meeting those who must have been high-ranking, this mysterious race of beings, Byrd was informed that they had allowed him to enter their domain as he was of noble character and well known on the surface world. So that's the only reason they let him in, right? So according to the remembered details of the conversation, great interest had been taken in the human race following the dropping of the atomic bombs over Nagasaki and Hiroshima. So let's recap that, right? So the people that called the inner earth their home were relatively happy to be left alone, right? So they knew of Byrd, they knew of his noble character, and when they see him fly over, they thought, I'll tell you what, let's let him in, right? So they did. They let him in, right? And the only reason they let him in is because now they're concerned that humanity are scumbags, right? We've just dropped 2 bombs, Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Not only are we scumbags to ourselves, we have now got the capability of being scumbags to them. All right, that's what I'm reading from this, right? This was of great concern to the inner Earth race, especially because there was the distinct possibility that it could happen again. Furthermore, although they had never before interfered in our wars and our barbarity, now that there was the danger of such a power being in human hands, they felt compelled to do so. Now, if you go back to some of my videos, and I've told stories of, nuclear silos, nuclear bases, Mamstron, I think it was called, where UFOs have literally just turned the weapons off. They have turned all the nuclear weapons off. They've just gone, right, we're going to turn them off, and then they've shot off. So maybe their way of interfering is not attacking, but just simply saying, look, we can do this if we need to, right? Now, whatever was said when Berg gave an interview to a Chilean newspaper, he would claim that in the case of a new war, the continental United States will be attacked by flying objects which could fly from pole to pole at an incredible speed. Now, obviously, since he said that, there has been a photo of a vehicle flying from pole to pole with incredible speed, right? So I will show it there. Now, that's the chemtrail. Apparently, a vehicle to fly from one end of the planet to the other without that chemtrail, disappearing is well over Mach 10. It's an incredible speed, right? And like I say, right, he's just saying they're going to be attacked by flying objects. I don't think that's the case. I think what they've done is they've come and turned our weapons off and gone, we can do that. We can do that. Now, in the case so, this was after Byrd claimed that it was imperative for the United States to initiate immediate defence measures against hostile regions. So how much weight we can put into Byrd's comments is perhaps open to debate. Some researchers do find it interesting. So, some researchers find it interesting, though, that he was hospitalised after his press conference. He would claim in his writings that following his full report to his superiors, who would then advise the president, he was ordered to remain silent in regards to all that I have learned on the behalf of humanity. So his superiors told him to shut up, right? Now, one of the final entries in his writing in December 1956 indicated that he was willing to now speak of the incident, so that this secret will not die with me, right? He said, for I have seen the land beyond the pole, that centre of the great unknown. He would die suddenly in 1957, an underlying heart ailment, just after he was told to shut up and not say stuff. It's also perhaps also interesting to know that seemingly strange circumstances that Byrd's son died in, when his body was discovered in an unused warehouse in New York. Byrd Jr. had accompanied his father on the high jump mission and was only 6 years old at the time. Whether his father spoke to him about what he saw and the subsequent event is open to debate. So not only did Byrd die of an underlying heart ailment after he said stuff he shouldn't, his son died mysteriously too. And that seems to happen, doesn't it, right? So what do you think about Admiral Byrd's story, right? Do you think he saw a city? I do. I generally do think he saw a city. I think he flew over the Antarctica, he see green fields, he see mammoths, and he was guided into that underground city because they were concerned about the nuclear weapons. That's my theory on it anyway. So what do you think? Drop me a line, drop me a comment, do you think he was lying? Why would he lie, though? I mean, Admiral Richard Byrd, he was extremely respected. He certainly had more to lose by coming out and saying stuff because he lost his life with underlying heart ailments. He had a lot to lose by keep talking about it. So if it was me and it wasn't true, you'd certainly keep stum, wouldn't you? Anyway, this is the Tinfoil Hat Fan Club. Thanks for sticking around. I really appreciate you watching till the end. I really do. Like, subscribe, and ding that notification bell if you can. That would be fantastic. And next week, we will continue the Antarctica theme, but we will go into a woman called Linda Moulton Howe that I love. I think she's fantastic. Now, obviously, when it comes to these sort of UFO people, you can always be a little bit dirty by money, but you do need to earn cash. That's the trouble. So, she's dedicated her life to cattle mutilation, UFO sightings, aliens, all that sort of stuff. So, look, next week, check it out and I'll tell you all about her. So, I'll see you soon. Thanks very much.